So welcome to our Pathway Exploration Weeks at the Faculty of Science at Dalhousie University. My name is Allison. I'm joined here by Annette, who is as a teacher here in the Halifax area, and we're going to talk today all about education and teaching in the sciences, and how to get involved and gain experience in your undergraduate to get from when you were an undergraduate student to now a teacher in the school system here in Halifax. So Annette, maybe we can just start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself, your name, your education, your background, current role, that kind of stuff.
Sure. So my name's Annette Martin, and I used to be Annette Woods when I went to Dal and when I got my teaching degree. So I've since married. That was sadly 17 years ago. I don't know where they went. The time just kind of flew by. But yeah, when I started and I went to Dal, I did a Bachelor of Science with a combined honors in biology and French. So I had done French immersion all the way through school, but I always really loved sciences, and it was hard for me to pick. So I didn't pick. When I went to Dal, I decided to do the Bachelor of Science, but I kept the French as well. And it was kind of a weird combo. There weren't many of us, probably 3, that went through both the Bachelor of Science and the BEd with the sciences and French. It wasn't a common combo, but it was great. And now I work for HRCE. I've worked for the school board. This is my 14th year. So 3 of the years I actually worked through Dal and through the Mount. I did a lot of TAing.
Oh, cool.
So that was my first experience teaching when I decided I wanted to become a teacher, was just TAing in the labs. And nicely, I was encouraged to do that by the instructors as I was going through. So that's how my pathway started. Originally, I wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
Changed my mind completely along the way.
And what made you change your mind? This is kind of a good segue, because I think we have a lot of our students who come into a BSc who have the same sort of initial goals. They want to go into medicine, and what made you change your mind to pursue education instead?
Well, the first year when I went into sciences, I took all of them at once. I did the chemistry, biology, physics, pre-cal combo, or it was calculus, sorry, the first year university, so the combo. And it was a pretty heavy year. It went well, but it was heavy. And I missed French. So the second year I took French again. And as I was doing labs with instructors who sort of got to know you a little bit more, the instructors and the TAs, just because the class size was fairly small compared to, if you were doing a lecture in the auditorium. And they encouraged me to have a second path. So my first path would have been medicine, but they encouraged me to think about a second path. And at that time, we really needed French immersion teachers. So I never actually had to sub because I had that combo of the science and French. I was able to go right into the BEd. I took a year to TA and make sure it's what I wanted to do. But after that, I went right into my BEd. And after I finished my BEd, I got a job. Within the first year, I got a contract. So if it weren't for those folks in the labs encouraging me to have pursued that secondary pathway, I may never have pursued it. And I did do my MCAT. I did well, but I just changed my mind completely. It wasn't what I wanted. I loved working with students right from the start.
Oh, amazing. Where did you do your BEd? I realized I forgot to ask you that a few minutes ago.
That's okay. It was at the Mount, so I did stay local for that as well. Yeah. And I'm now I'm applying for a master's at St. FX. So just kind of stay within the province. Yeah.
Congratulations. That's really exciting.
Thanks. Yeah.
And I'm always interested, because we try to encourage, students who are interested in a pathway in education, that the 2 teachable subjects and combining their science degree with other subjects is a good step to take. And just wondering if you had any sort of advice on that. I think combining with French in particular seems like a very good decision. And any thoughts generally on that? It
was a great match, because they still need French immersion teachers. So if your students do have French, it was definitely a leg up. We always need math and science people. It sometimes takes a little bit longer to get a contract with just the math and science as opposed to the combo. But definitely especially fresh, keen students who've just come out of their degree. My best friend, who pursued a BEd as well, she actually ended up working in the biomedical field.
Oh, wow.
So you can take that, you can take the BEd and do other things with it as well. And it was the combination of the two degrees that helped her through that stepping stone too. So, I mean, research is definitely a lifestyle you can pursue. I looked at forensic entomology for a time through SMU, because they have some really cool labs that they do, but I just decided this was what I really wanted to do.
Cool.
And I think if it wasn't for the folks that had guided me along the way, maybe I would be a doctor and I wouldn't be so happy. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you sound very, very happy in your job, and
I am.
And you teach biology or general sciences?
So it's been a long 17 years of a few different qualifications. So I do secondary school. So some of my time was at junior high, and I always had either 7, 8, 9 science, sometimes with a math. Sometimes I had a math as well, oftentimes with French language arts and other things. In the high school time, which is where I'm at now, both at the start and now at this point in my career, I did Bio 11 and 12 in French and English, human biology at one point, which is a grade 11 course, and Science 10. Cool. So, and then the language arts also. I always have a combo of the two, so it kind of kept up.
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything, yep.
And you've kind of touched on this already, especially the role of like the instructors and that work in the lab, but how did your undergrad in the sciences piece do you still find yourself using it a lot and using what you learned in your undergrad in your day-to-day job?
100%, yeah. I use what I learned in the undergrad. I used my time in the lab, which was also under the instructors. I use that a lot because I'm not uncomfortable taking students into the lab, and I really credit that experience to my time at Dal and just having done so many labs and having taught in the labs. If it weren't for that, I think I wouldn't be as comfortable in a lab. Right. But yeah, I have to use it every day. Like the base of knowledge that I have for teaching Science 10, for teaching Bio 11 and 12, all comes from Dal. The Mount really just taught me how to teach, how to perfect teaching, and particularly teaching science and French, but my experience with the actual science comes from my time at Dal.
Amazing. Very cool.
Yeah.
And were there, you've talked about sort of the instructors and advisors that, played a really critical role. And were there any courses or other sort of opportunities that you pursued in your undergrad that really, gave you a lot of experience? We're always looking for ways to, provide that out of the classroom experience to sort of set students up for that next step. So yeah, any other pieces there?
Well, I really enjoyed the variety. I remember like the first year, it was kind of, you had to get your basic foundation in sciences in the 3 of them. And then once you decided what you liked, I found by the second year, I loved the variety. So I had, cellular biology, but there was also different diversity classes and conservation classes. And I was able to take entomology, bacteriology, and parasitology. Like it was quite a variety of things you could take. So I'd spend some time in the life sciences building, but I also used to go to the Tupper building quite a lot and take things that were just of interest that are actually much handier than you would think. Kids get sick quite a lot. So that old bacteriology course, people laughed at my choice, but it comes in handy a lot. I'm not diagnosing kids, but we don't often have a health nurse, particularly during a COVID year.
Right.
Because they're all doing testing and they've been, seconded to other positions. So having those classes really helped, and taking kids outside. I really loved plant biology, ecology. There were so many different classes that I use every day. I really do.
Cool. Well,
and even the basics.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure. And sorry to interrupt.
No,
to interrupt you there, but do you find yourself doing a lot of like experiential learning pieces with your students now, and trying to get them like hands-on experience and things like that?
Yes, as much as we can. Now this is a very unusual year, just evidenced by what we're doing right now. But
yeah, exactly.
But with COVID, certainly what we're able to do is a little different than other years. But we definitely use a lot of that. I think of the lab we did terrestrial diversity, I think it was. We would go and examine tree samples, and we'd go and examine just pond samples and those sort of things. We use that almost every year in Bio 11. That's very useful.
Yeah.
And other things, staining, different types of staining that we would use for microscope labs. There, you know, it comes in handy.
That's awesome.
For
And
sure.
actually, this wasn't a question that I had originally had, but you kind of just touched on it. And how has your day-to-day life as a secondary teacher changed because of the pandemic? How have you been adapting your teaching style and what you do?
I mean, we're doing the best we can. It's going a lot better than it is in other provinces. Let's be honest. We're lucky here in Nova Scotia in that we've had mostly school in person as opposed to online. There's been some online school, but we can do virtual labs. It is possible. Yeah. I find the engagement is not as high because that hands-on piece is important. But yeah, definitely this year has been a challenge. It's almost like we're all first-year teachers again, even though this is 17 years in.
Yeah.
You're kind of relearning some new tools, and I find kids' mental health has become very important. Kids have lost a lot of their outlets. So just trying to be compassionate and focus on a relationship as much as the curriculum has been helpful, I think.
I think that's really powerful advice. And, you know, I don't think you're alone, and definitely our day-to-day life working in, you know, post-secondary education has changed a lot too.
Oh, yes.
Dal being
I'm sure it has.
Fully online, you know, I think everyone's doing their best and trying to create a positive student experience across the board. So you've touched on some important points that I think we're all sort of experiencing here in the educational field in general. So not ideal, but you know, everyone's trying their best.
That's it. I think it's just a new way of teaching and learning all together. It certainly, I give credit to people who teach virtually all the time. Mm-hmm. It's a different art. It's certainly not one I was knowledgeable about before.
No, just a fully different skill set and way of learning. It's, you know, it's certainly an interesting year. I think we'll look back on in the.
I think so.
Definitely.
We'll be doing studies.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just slightly interesting, but yeah. So and just back to some of the questions here. So maybe, you know, COVID I think has probably been pretty challenging, but if you could talk about what are some of the most challenging aspects of being a science teacher and the most rewarding aspects?
Well, I think that kids really want to be doing hands-on learning every day. I think that's been a challenge, at least at the university level. Students are aware mostly that they'll have to do some sort of practical in-class stuff and that they'll get the labs. Usually there's the two components for science classes, whereas in high school, we really have to combine it into one. So they may not be getting as much lab time, particularly because the labs are often shared. They may not be getting as much lab time as they would like. And in our school, we have AP classes. So AP classes tend to do more labs just because they are more university equivalent type classes. Yeah. And then the other classes have to share the lab. So just time management and getting into the lab as much as the kids would like, that's a challenge. Right. I'd love for that to be, you know, at least an every week thing, but it looks more like sort of four or five labs a semester kind of thing. Okay. Instead of every week.
Wow. Yeah. So that's, yeah. And outside of COVID, are there, you know, generally some challenging aspects to the job that you can impart on our aspiring teachers in science, and the rewarding pieces as well, of course?
Well, I think you have to be able to pivot, especially during a COVID year, but any year. Just each group of students is different from the other groups. So there is no one way to teach and no one set of values, even though the curriculum often doesn't change for large amounts of time in between. It does change, but it takes a lot for the Department of Ed to reinvent curriculum or switch it up. Science is always changing, as your students know, but it sometimes takes us a bit of time to catch up, particularly in French immersion, because then we have to translate. So there's an added time frame. Right. So that can be a challenge in any year. Just you have to change a fair amount. I know that there's this idea that once you become a teacher, then you're a teacher and you have your set of things that you've invented and you have your set of outcomes and that's going to be it for your career, but that's been seldom it.
Right.
It changes every semester with every group.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So that's a challenge at any year, and just keeping on top of that kind of time management and you know, you add things like exams and reference letters and paperwork, and the combo is time consuming. Sometimes it's much more than the hours you put in at school, a lot more than what people would see.
Yeah, no, I think that's important to to communicate there. And how about some of those rewarding you know, stories, or I'm sure you have many from your, you know, years and years of teaching that, you know, it's incredibly rewarding and fun. And yeah,
the best things are always, you know, like developing a rapport with students. And the thing is, you won't click with every single student, just like every single student won't click with you, like anything else. You know, you'll learn to work together just because your personalities could be different, but they could be really well matched. As long as everybody finds somebody to bond with, that's the main thing. So those relationships are definitely wonderful. That's what keeps you going and wanting to see kids learn. Watching the aha type moments when they discover something they've been working at, or when they're in the lab. And I love it when a chemical reaction changes color and they're, or it gives off some heat, or, you know, they get to dissect something for the first time and it's kind of gross. And some of them may find it even more disgusting and others might love it. So those moments are nice. You know, they're great. Yeah. And they keep you going.
Yeah. I didn't pursue sciences in my undergrad, but, you know, I think back to the high school teachers that I had that, you know, and I wish I was more talented in the sciences, but it made you love it. That's sort of your first touch point. And, you know, you get to get an introduction to a topic and dive a little bit deeper on your own. And, you know, it's really that first person who I think kind of awakens a lot of passion and interest in people and students to take that next step to pursuing science further. So I think it's just such a critical, important role to get people excited about science. And
yes,
yeah,
because we lose some of our curiosity as we age. Some of us do. You know, like we're little, we love science and we like picking up bugs and we like our insects. My former entomology teacher would be mad about using the word bugs, but you know, you pick up insects and you like to get dirty and you like to make a mess. And then as we age, there are less and less people that enjoy those things. So getting someone to re-experience that's nice. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Sparking a little fun.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. and to keep that fun going through, you know, next steps in life. So that's really important. And
yes.
When you were, you know, starting to look for jobs, and it sounds like, you know, pretty quickly after you finished your BD, you did find something, but what were you looking for in a position right after graduation? And then what do you continue to look for in teaching positions for yourself?
So, I mean, things have changed a little bit in the time since I started teaching. So 17 years is a fair amount of time. When I first started, I was happy to take a job in any area of interest that would include science and French. So if it included courses that I wasn't as keen about, then that was fine. I was willing to, you know, learn and do what I could to teach the kids. As time went on, I found that at this point in my career, I sort of enjoy the high school kids a bit more than the junior high kids, just because my own energy is a little less than it was when I started. You need a fair amount of energy for junior high.
I bet.
But what I stayed local the whole time. I didn't really move out of our area. So that was nice. And I was always able to live close to where I worked. So I didn't have to travel too much. And that's important when you're first starting, because, you know, the expense of the bus or a vehicle or something can be hefty if it's your first year out.
Yeah.
But I was able to often find, you know, a position that was close to where I lived, or vice versa. I could, you know, live where my position was, and that was good. That was important. And I was always able to keep up both the science and French, which was really important to me.
Right.
And you know, I was blessed in that I had a contract right away.
Yeah.
So I never really had to sub, because subbing can be challenging, and sometimes you have to sub when you start. Because I didn't sub, I didn't learn some of the classroom management techniques that I might have learned. So that first year I had to learn that, you know, the hard way.
On your
trial and error. Yeah, on my feet.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great advice, though. Thank you. And in general, what kind of advice would you have for, you know, our current undergraduate science students who are thinking about teaching and education? Any sort of parting words for students aspiring to do what you do?
Well, I think that you should follow your passion. I mean, medicine was never my passion. So setting that up was great. I always worked hard, so that was good. It taught me some things, and I used some of the things I learned every day. But if you follow your passion, if teaching is your passion, then you should follow that, because you will never be disappointed in this career, even if things get tough. I mean, we've been through a strike in recent years, and the relationship with the government and unions hasn't always been particularly great lately. All of that aside, it's a wonderful job every day. I enjoy my job, even when I'm tired, even when, you know, I've given quite a few hours more than I anticipated. And there are lots of perks. The timeline is nice. You do get your summers off, and some of us use those to do educational venues, like you can take classes and you can upgrade, and it's nice to have some planned time off. Snow days are nice too. I know that we get a lot of flack for those, and I'm not sure, maybe they'll go virtual in the future. That's what's happening in a lot of places because of this year. Right? You lose those days because it's now gone virtual. May not be a perk forever. But yeah, just that relationship with students. I think of all the kids I've met over the years, just some brilliant minds and some wonderful humans. And just watching them grow has been worth every moment, and every gray hair, because I'm a lot grayer than I used to be.
Well, I think that's some really lovely parting advice. And Annette, I just wanted to thank you for sharing your path with us, and in this, you know, the last few minutes are here so for a quick chat. And yeah, I think you know, you really got me excited and remembering back to my high school days about those teachers that really cared and really wanted to see their students succeed. So thank you so much. And
thank you so much. And thanks for my time at Dell. It's been always a lovely memory I have.
That's good to know. Awesome. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you